Now let us consider the idea of recreation, recreational activities, yard time, right? Recreation, the creational energy of the gods, as the Egyptians said. Ra creation, or Re creation. Which one do you choose? And that is if you even accept the idea. Some people are blind, thinking that there cannot be one person who's more influential than the rest. How much power should they have? How much power does that one person have? Our society certainly doesn't define that. Perhaps nobody, including that person themselves, understands the limit of their power. Pharaoh should be given unlimited power in terms of what is possible for an individual person. Look at cultivate, right? Kill-I-Vi-E. Okay, with the wordplay applied as one possibility. Motivate, O-I-Vi-E, right? The I of the reproductive cycle. I'll always emphasize the social order and the reproductive cycle. Everything I'm talking about absolutely pertains to it. In fact, what does it? And I try to keep with the core, right? Ra is the strength of the sun, the core of it, not the rays coming off, not an individual ray, not the sum of the rays, but the core, the strength of the sun, the spirit behind it that has created the rest of it. The rest of it is just shadows on the wall in the cave, so to speak, in Plato's cave, I believe it's called. All right. Any halfway perspective favors the crook, right? They're versatile. They don't have one plan. You can change the plan. They'll find new loopholes. They'll find new ways to take advantage, to game the system. Just give them the opportunity to game the system. They'll play the game. Versus the Pharaoh who can only do it one way, and that is the natural order. That is the most logical way. So even meeting halfway destroys the Pharaoh's purpose and favors the criminals. We go to recess, right? Cesspool, a raised cesspool, right? Ra says, a bunch of little hellspawn running around in the spirit of the devil versus people doing what Ra says. Goes back to the structure of the school that I've talked about before. Now, just because somebody is a beta male doesn't mean they don't have forms of toughness. Some people can have alpha male attributes, right? Some people have more alpha male attributes perhaps than the typical beta male attributes. But the alpha male means one, right? He's the one guy, he's one. And in terms of being the spiritual alpha male, only somebody from a sun temple insisting on a pure masculine spirit can win, right? Because God is the pure masculine spirit. The sun is the symbol of the man. This is the continuity of patriarchal martial arts cultures who saw it that way for thousands of years. It's stupid not to see it that way. Shaolin Kung Fu didn't come about until, last couple thousand years or so. Okay, we're talking about martial arts systems, spearheads that go back tens of thousands of years, at least 70,000 year to 100,000 year old culture of the San people, where they had the python head in Africa. Okay, this is the continuity of this culture, and we have no reason to believe otherwise. Just nonsensical, biased, ulterior motive having bitches with sissy perspectives that hid from my challenge on top of that. Okay, so it's one thing to have the traits versus the one. Okay, the more aware and conscious of the reasons why one should be mad, right? Righteous indignation. And the more they have focused on that aspect when they're living and cultivating mind, body, soul, and spirit, community spirit, individual spirit, God if applicable. Okay, and certainly the idea of God creates the superior warrior. This is part of nature's lessons. This guy believes God wants him to do it versus he's just trying to reach enlightenment. Leave me alone, I'm just trying to reach enlightenment. Versus God wants me to put this in order. Obviously, the guy who believes in God has a mental and spiritual advantage. Think about it. It's stupid not to see it that way. One could say that, what about unfocusing? Well, focusing the masculinity and the testosterone that comes with generations created the more athletic person, right? We don't see solid examples of Buddhists dominating percussive sports, striking sports. Where's the Buddhist boxers? Okay, where's the Buddhist UFC fighters? If they're Buddhists, they wouldn't be competing, right? We don't see them dominating these things. We see them suppressing African martial arts systems in the Western world especially, and then going into Africa for better or worse, To be diplomatic, I have my opinion. I'm sure you've ascertained what that is. And ultimately, that leads to the suppression of certain martial arts cultures and the embracing of Chinese cultures, which include Buddhist perspectives. It's stupid not to see it that way. All right. So we look at the image, okay, of somebody. Hypermasculinity and having something to prove. Okay. We can channel this thing into something productive. It's kind of like a bullet. It's kind of like gunpowder blows up, let's leave it alone, versus let's make a bullet. Okay? It's stupid not to see it that way. Now, I'm not saying bullet is a positive technology, mind you, but it is the idea that you can make something useful out of something you say, it blows up and scares us all. It's fucking stupid. Channel that in a martial arts structure and create a superior society. Instead of having sicko weirdos who have proven definitively they are incapable of being leaders, that have destroyed the world, hopelessly so, being in charge. It doesn't take a genius to see that I'm right. When we talk about, he's inciting a riot, right? Inciting. Insight. It takes insight for someone to see something's wrong. Insight, right? Citing truths and behaviors. Why is it going to be a riot? If it was going to be, it's because of your inability to apply the same insight, moral insight, especially spiritual insight, logical, higher logic, and the accompanying insight. And now we have a problem. The solution isn't to suppress the truth. The solution is for you to concede the point. And Pharaoh, absolutely, is the very definition of the point. Going back to muscle definition. Brain structure definition versus just size alone, right? Functionality, and so on. Pharaoh defines manhood and male insufficiencies. And it is supposed to be accepted by the entire order, which includes women. When in our society, women help go through the motions of defining the ideal man, whether they see it that way or not, and it's a propaganda society. Some buy it, some buy it, and some don't. Some roll with it for the social rewards, economic and otherwise. In other words, they know the corporate guy's a crook, he's an idiot, he's not smart, he's not more of a man, he's not the true alpha male, but they insist on being with him for the perceived political, economic, and social rewards. It's like feminism is defined as the social, political, and economic equality of women being the idea. Right? They're looking at it in terms of that. They don't miss the point. They're just cowards and immoral scum, the people in general. When we talk about Trump and Bush being an embarrassment, was there a pre-existing embarrassment and embarrassments that allowed for these people to rise to power? Absolutely. It's cultural insufficiency. It's the beta male culture that allowed for beta male weirdos to come into power. It's stupid not to see it that way. Does Trump have more in common with the left or with me? What, are you an idiot? Is he a martial artist? Or is he teaming up with scientists? Is he a left-right bitch? Or is he an uncontrolled martial arts? He has more in common with you, Mr. Democrat, Mrs. Democrat, than he does with me. And it's not because he's more right than I am. You look at Michael Jordan, his coaching skills. This is an example of the black athlete's intellect downplayed or at least drawn into question because he's being stigmatized by a racist culture. And you don't see the left protesting his treatment. No, they benefit from the stigmatization of the black coordinated man. And in his best and most brilliant and glorious form, he is a martial artist. He is Pharaoh, the top martial artist. There's a fixation on the culture that created the black man. You say, why do gang members kill each other? Their argument saying, police don't just kill people. Black gang members kill each other all the time. Why isn't anyone talking about that? We are outraged at this culture and we want you to talk about that. Well, it's because it's the political paradigm. And where did that culture come from? Why don't we talk about the underlying cause, the root cause, Western colonialism, neocolonialism, cultural imperialism that has suppressed the black martial art order, which would have channeled the black man's masculinity into something productive. Why don't we talk about that? Why stop there? Are you not as smart as I am? Or are you not as brave? Not as honorable? Not as worthy of a mate? And why don't the women see it that way? Similar reasons, perhaps. When we look at the case of a woman being gang raped in slavery, which ultimately, that process being a key component of slavery, creating a less attractive group of people in black males. Look at Ethiopians, look at the Nigerians that win the beauty contest. A lot of black women are unattractive. It's because of nature and nurture. They've been bred to be unattractive because the attractive women killed themselves, fought back and killed themselves, or ran away and were accused of drapetomania by psychiatrists. Samuel Cartwright coined the term, psychiatrist. Drapetomania, a runaway slave. She must be crazy. Not that she's being gang raped mentally, spiritually, and physically every day, but she's crazy. And if she fights back, she needs to be hung and killed. So she gets screened out. Do you want to have the oppressor's baby? The smart, attractive woman dies. She's screened out. So we get a bunch of dumb, attractive black bitches, with all due respect, and we get a less frequency of attractive women in the female demographic in the black community. See how that works? Or are you stupid? If you're stupid, you may as well stop watching right now. What's the point, right? Anyway, and that includes your works, right? Faith without works, knowledge without works is empty. I know everything, but I'm going to keep plugging children. Just shut up, right? Just shut the fuck up. Your knowledge without you applying it means nothing. Same thing with leaders in the Western culture. You haven't shown even for a moment that you are more of a worthy leader than an African martial artist. Not even for a moment. None of you have. Not Abraham Lincoln and George Washington combined. Moving on. Okay, so the mother sometimes kills them as well. So is fighting back a sign of mental illness? Certainly. No one has ever truly made that claim, but subtly they are suggesting that and enforcing it, that suggestion with forced medication, with gang stalking, psyops, propaganda campaigns, smear campaigns, on record, mind you, RA, relational aggression, okay, being done by women and being done by their allies in the gender-neutral spirit on the right, the left, the middle, you name it. Okay, so I'm running out of time. Let's just shoot through this. Okay, so people internalize it. When a bully is pushing you around, you're supposed to internalize it, focus it, and kill them. Stand there in a martial arts position. They yell, you get worked up, you're feeling their evil intent, you're understanding who they are, they're truly showing you who you are. They are, you got to maneuver them and you strike them. It's part of the reason they didn't accept my challenge, because they have some similar martial art process which allowed them to perceive a superior martial artist, and even for $100,000 at one point, they stood down. It's easier for a smaller person to not achieve the degree of intensity that the warrior in battle achieves and to do the form. When you're doing forms, right, a lot of times they're not done with extreme intensity. Okay, it's easier for a smaller person to have pretty form, especially in the absence of intensity. When I focus and it's a life or death strike, that's when it comes into being. Okay, in sparring, there's a certain focus and importance assigned to victory versus just putting on a form. Right? In any given form, there's not that same importance, and it's not relative to another person, which is key, right? Relational aggression, relational martial arts, relativity, relative to your size, relative to your opponent, and so on. Okay, so the argument somebody is dick and small, you ever seen women say, oh, he has a little dick. Why are you telling me this? Are you a slut? Isn't that more like what a slut would do than a good woman, right? Real women don't kiss and tell. They don't fucking tell either. Okay, the brute force striking on the heavy bag, right? It creates a body. The body receives the vibration, you know, the damage, and it takes form a certain way, a big, fluffy kind of pillow kind of shape as you hit the heavy bag more. If you focus on that more, right? Versus the quick speeding strikes of other techniques, and speed bag included, which I don't do myself, mind you, I have my own way of doing it. And I've gone over it if you've paid attention in my past videos. So this also has to do with sex, right? The brute force penetration versus making love, and I've gone over that as well. This is UFC sign holders in the between rounds. She's a slut, right? And she's dressed like a slut, to say the least, to promote that brute force sex kind of culture instead of making love. So enlightenment, lighten-meant, right? The on light, which was meant. The light isn't in you, it is in the Pharaoh. Should he die, then there is darkness for all. He is the doorman, she is the key, right? The key to unlocking the door, right? The divine order, the suitable helper.